Hi, Dave Spaulding from Handgun Combatives, and I'm here on the range today at Panteo Productions' brand new training facility, which is just outstanding. And I have with me one of my favorite people in the whole world, Arthur Viani from Ghost. Full disclosure, Arthur's a sponsor of my training company and is a very good friend.
Hey, Dave.
Glad to have you here today, Arthur.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Listen, Arthur, you make some of the most interesting aftermarket gun components that I have ever used. Why don't you take the time to kind of tell us a little bit about how Ghost came about, because it is kind of an interesting story.
Well, I started it kind of by accident. I was always a shooter, and I shot 1911s, and I loved 1911s. And when I was in the Army, I had the opportunity to get a Glock and carry a Glock. And I realized that it was lighter, it carried more rounds, and it was more reliable than a 1911.
I couldn't agree more.
And I loved the gun. I hated the trigger. The trigger was horrible. It was hard to shoot very well and fast because of the over travel and the stacking of the trigger. And so one day I was playing around with the gun and I figured out a way to add a trigger stop to it, and that's what I did.
Well, now when you talk about the stacking and stuff, you're referring mostly to that little glitch where the trigger bar meets the connector to pull it down. So when you developed your connector, not only did you deal with the over travel, you dealt with that glitch, did you not?
Yeah, later on in another series of connectors. The first one we had was, I named it the Rocket, and the reason I call it the Rocket was my wife is a rocket scientist.
Ah, okay.
So it was named after my wife. I didn't want to say the Ghost Patricia, so I called it the Ghost Rocket.
Right.
And that was great. We sold over 1 million of those. And it always bothered me that the first shot is your most critical shot, as you know. And when the gun comes out and you get that stacking, it tends to move the gun off the line of sight.
Right.
So I figured out a way by raising the guide angle and changing the angle of the guide angle, it eliminated that stacking or that glitch.
Right.
And so we've got another series of patents on those trigger connectors.
Right. Now, we've got a couple of custom guns here, custom Glocks from Templar Custom Arms here in front of us, and they're just stuck full of Ghost components. And Bob at Templar doesn't mind that. But I find it interesting that not only do individuals buy your products, but a number of custom gunsmiths also do. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we sell to a vast majority of them, and a lot of them don't want us to
That's okay.
tell who they are.
Right.
And we also make what we call a no-name series of trigger connectors that we sell to these various gunsmiths, and they can put it in so they can claim it's their own proprietary trigger, and we don't have a problem with that.
Right. Another thing I think the viewer probably needs to know is while all of this was going on and you were building Ghost into the company you are now, you were a working firefighter.
Yes, I was, for Miami-Dade County.
Right.
And that was kind of a labor of love. After 9/11, I tried to get back into the Army.
Right.
And thank goodness they said I was too old, too fat, and too slow.
Okay.
So my wife was looking through the paper one day and she said, hey, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue's hiring. Why don't you apply there? So I applied, and I was a full-time professional firefighter for 7 years while I ran Ghost full-time at the same time.
Right. So you're a veteran of the U.S. Army, and you're a veteran firefighter, and you're working on trigger, or I should say actually, aftermarket components for the Glock pistol, primarily intended for the self-defense market.
Yes.
Arthur, that's just fantastic. Thanks for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Dave, my pleasure.
If you want more information on Ghost products, check in at www.ghostinc.com. It's a very impressive website. There's a lot of useful information and good quality components on there. I think you'll be glad you took the time.